is a TEDx coach and organizer as well. So we're going to be talking about several things today and answering some questions about what you need to know to get on a TEDx talk, right? Even a TED talk. Perhaps you've always wanted to do a TED talk and you're not sure where to start. What makes a good talk? What are organizations looking for in speakers? And a TED Talk can do a lot for your leadership, for your business, for your recognition, authority, credibility. So I wanted to have Tessa on the show today to talk a bit more about this. So welcome, Tessa. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And Tessa is actually joining us from a boat from the Caribbean, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I am in Martinique today, where it is very hot.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it.
Lots of good cheese and French wine and baguettes, though.
I
So can't
love it.
complain.
That's too funny. I love it. I love it. I love it. Very cool. So again, being a TEDx organizer, of course, and a TEDx coach, if anyone needs coaching on how to get on TEDx and the things required and coaching them even to be a great TEDx speaker. Now, what are people looking for? What are organizations and organizers looking for?
Well, it's an interesting question. Sorry, I noticed just as the sun comes around and the
I
boat
love
moves,
it. Beautiful.
you lose all video. Um, so the great thing about it, about the TED format and that we all love about TED is that it can really be anything,
Mm,
right? The TED originally stands for Technology, Education, and Design. But essentially, what that's come to mean is if you have an idea worth spreading, that's the motto of TED. If you have an idea that we haven't heard before that needs to get out there, it's a new perspective on an old way of doing things, or it's a completely new design, it's a new product, it's a new service, it's something that you think might change one life or it might change thousands of lives, then it's an idea worth spreading. And
sure.
that's what TED is looking for. And as an organizer, I'm looking for something unique. I'm looking for people who maybe in an industry that we think has been, we've covered all the topics that then need to be covered, that everything's been said, but yet someone comes along and has a different way of looking at it, right?
Mm,
They're doing things a little bit differently. They've just got a slightly different perspective that unlocks something for people or that changes our views on an idea or that allows us to design a product that solves a problem that
mm.
is either a new problem or an old problem. And I think as long as it's unique, that's what an organizer is looking for. That's what is deserving of being on the stage, right? And that can be in any area that you can possibly think of.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So it's any well, I love that. Any discipline. I mean, I speak a lot on authenticity and I would love to do a TED or TEDx talk too. And to your point though, and I hope this helps for others, authenticity is not, you know, earth shattering. However, if I were to come at it with an angle that is perhaps new or different, or why authenticity is key, or how to be authentic that's again different or new, an idea worth spreading, that could be something to organizers. I think that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Or is it's a way that you know that it works. It works for you, it works for other people. And so I like to think of the idea of a TED talk as a gift, right? You're standing on a stage with the opportunity to share something with an audience, both people in the room, maybe 50, maybe 500, but it's a potential audience of millions online. What can you give them? And if you have a perspective that's new, there's lots of talks on authenticity, but you might have a way of connecting in a way that's completely different and that resonates with those people that hadn't got it before.
Sure.
And so therefore there's always room for that new perspective.
Very cool. And I love, and that's, I'm glad I asked because that's a great example for people to pull from. It's even if it's something that's not net new, you can still come at it from a different way, different view, different angle. And again,
Right.
authenticity is not net new. However, maybe coming at a different way to do it, or different reason, or different look at it, different light shedding upon it. So I love
Yeah.
that. Now, what makes a good talk, Tessa? What makes a really good TED or TEDx talk?
Well, obviously it's that unique aspect, right? Nobody wants to sit down and think, oh, I've already heard this idea before. But it's something specific, right? It's something that you understand intimately and can explain clearly in a very short amount of time. Originally, most TED Talks, it started off with this 18-minute limit, but over the years that hard limit is still there, but the average talk tends to be more 9 to 11,
Hmm.
right? So you have this 10-minute
Wow.
window to really get your idea across. It's something specific. I always sometimes think of it from an entrepreneurial perspective. It's like trying to nail down what your ideal client is. You
Hmm.
think, oh, but I can do this. This is relevant to everybody. But it's not that what you do can't be relevant to everybody, but it's how can it affect that one person so intimately, right? How's that one idea that you walk away with having heard that talk and go, I get it. That's for me. I'm going to go home today and I'm going to make this change in my life, or I'm going to decide to do this differently, or I'm going to invest in this product or look for this product, or just change one thing because of the talk. And I think that's what makes a great talk, or it makes you think differently about the world. When I think of some of my favorite talks, there's one that I think of as always one of my favorites about leadership from the aspect of conducting an orchestra, right? I'm not a conductor. I'm not a leader in industry either, but I love the way that it breaks down something that we consider every day, this idea of leadership, and looks at it from a different perspective, and
Yeah.
how we interact with people. And I think at the heart of a good talk is every single person in the audience can take something from the talk and go home and run with it. And I always say when I'm coaching a speaker is, what's the one thing you want the audience to remember? If you have them go home and explain your talk in one sentence, what is it, right? What can they go home with today?
Cool. I love that. I love that. I love that. Anything else? Anything else that makes a really great talk?
I think it's often it's the manner of delivery, and I think that's what people are most scared of when they think about doing a TED talk. The question, the thing I probably hear most is, "Oh my gosh, I would love to do a TED talk one day,"
Mm,
hotly followed by, "Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine standing on stage," or "How am I going to remember it? How am I going to do it? I have all this stuff that I want to say. How can I possibly condense it into 10 minutes?" And so I think what makes a great TED talk is that ability to have really thought through the idea that you want to get across, and you've dialed it down to something very specific. And then you've found a way to communicate it that is engaging and accessible through the language that you use, through the visuals that you use, the props, your way of interacting. It's being yourself on the stage, right? It's we all recognize when we hear a talk that sounds phony, or just fake, or someone parroting someone else's ideas.
sure.
What we resonate with is people being themselves. It's authenticity, like you said. You
Authentic. There
talk
you go.
it.
Authenticity.
That's what we relate to, and I always say there's no one way to do a TED talk. There's no perfect talk. There's a really funny one where a guy stands on stage and basically says nothing, right? He says, now I'm going to give you my TED talk. I'm going to go up at the end of the sentence, I'm going to pause, now I'm going to make it sound like I'm saying something. And so there's a way of delivery, right? There's a way to do it, but it's comes we know we feel it when we know someone's not being themselves. So the real trick in the talk is helping people find that confidence, not just in the words they're going to say, but in how they deliver it, so that when they're standing on stage, you connect with the audience and the audience connects with you. And that's that idea of resonance. Is
Okay.
it's the name of my business, right? It's something that connects. It goes both ways, right? You don't just connect with the audience and they don't connect with you. The resonance needs to be both ways, and that's what makes a great talk, is when you lean in, right? You listen, you want more, you leave at the end of it and go, wow, I feel like I've got something from this.
Very cool. Very cool. I love it. I love it. And I love what I'm hearing, and what I think of him anyways, is it just be real, be raw, be authentic. It doesn't have to be something brand new. However, it needs to be a different look at something, a different viewpoint of something. And again, coming across from a real authentic perspective on it, and having people maybe look at something differently, or look at something in a whole new way, perhaps. Because I mean, even I'm like, a lot of this stuff's been done. If I'm just gonna, talk about something similar, are people gonna check out, or will I get rejected for a TED talk? But I think it can be something similar. Again, whether it's leadership or authenticity or whatever, but it's like the new view in it. I heard Drew Dudley, I believe his name was, he did a talk on, he's called it lollipop leadership. And he
Mhm.
said that everyone is a leader. All of us are leaders. And it was really an interesting perspective on leadership and how we're all leaders, because a lot of people don't think don't think they're leaders, right? Yeah, we're all leaders in some regards. So it's just, I can think a new view, a new way to look at things, or like to your point, Tessa, it's to take that something home and do something different. Wow, I am a leader, right? I'm a leader. So people start behaving differently. I'm a leader to my kids or my colleagues, or I don't know, to the trees if you're an environmentalist or whatever. We're all leaders, or the corporate leaders who are very obvious leaders, but people who didn't know they were leaders. Wow, I am a leader to my friends or to my whatever. It was really interesting too. What's the difference between a TED and TEDx talk, would you say?
So TED is the organization, and they have two events per year. They have their main TED conference, which happens in Vancouver in the spring, and then they have TED Women in the fall. And every now and then they have a few other events. There's TED Global that happens every now and then, and those TED events are organized by the team at TED, by TED employees, and they reach out to leaders in different fields across, around the world to come and speak at their events. And they curate it entirely in house. They're
Hmm.
coached in house. The production is in house.
Wow,
And
wow.
those are just those two events per year. The vast majority of the TED content that you see online,
Hmm.
if you actually look in the background or on the titles of every video, has that little X. And
True.
that X stands for independently organized, basically. And so, whilst there are only these two TED events every year, the major ones that are organized in house, there are thousands of TEDx events.
True.
And
True.
so, anybody can apply for a license to TED. So, for me, for example, I've been an organizer for about 10 years. I
Oh,
organized the first little community event in Switzerland with a friend.
cool.
About 10 years ago, we had 100 people in a little room,
Oh,
and then that grew into what is now TEDx Basel, which has hundreds of participants and audience members every year.
cool.
And then organized a couple of events in Vermont as well, where we have an audience of 400. And you can organize any type of event that you want. They range from TEDx salon events, which is maybe a recurring monthly meeting at a local library, to these annual events, which sometimes rival TED in their scope and
Oh,
and
and then
and influence. And I think it's really important for people to think, when they think about a TED talk, the chances of you getting on the TED stage in Vancouver is extremely
hmm,
slim,
hmm,
right? The chance of you getting a TEDx talk is really high. There are TEDx events happening all over the place.
right,
There's probably
right.
one happening in your local city or your local college. And whilst all TEDx events are not created equal, if you go to a really well organized event that's beautifully curated, has excellent AV, and you've created a wonderful talk, there's absolutely no reason that your TEDx talk, your independently organized event talk, cannot have the same influence and impact online. If you think of some of
Very cool.
the most famous TED speakers like Brene Brown or Simon Sinek, their first TED talks were TEDx's.
Oh,
They were
interesting.
local ones. And it was only after that that they got invited to speak on the main stage. And I always use Simon Sinek as the example because the video quality of his first event was awful. He was in a little room, and like he moves out of shot. Someone walks in front of the camera at one point. It's like kind of sketchy quality. But I always say is like, of
Funny.
course, as you're applying, you should look for an event that's going to provide you with good quality AV,
Yeah,
right? And that's something I like to offer to my speakers. I say, I can help you, not here to tell you what to say. I've
hmm,
invited you or you've applied because you have something incredible to share.
fair.
What I can offer you is the stage, the coaching, and a really high quality video so that you can use that to build your brand, to get your message out there, whatever you want, whatever your purpose is for doing a TED talk.
Okay.
Once you have the video, you can then, it can get out there, and it can run on its own in some ways. So don't be put off by that little X.
I like that, and it's
Absolutely.
great. Yeah, and it's great marketing, great influence, authority. Now, in the last minute, Tessa, how can people reach you, either to maybe be part of your TEDx event, to get some TED or TEDx coaching, how to get on these events, how to coach their talk? How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn at Tessa Rawson. My business is called Resonance Ideas. Like I said, that idea of resonance, of that
Love it.
communication between speaker and audience.
Love it.
You can find me on my website, Resonance-Ideas. And I organize my own events, but I also work with people who want to do a TED Talk. I help coach them through that process to help them find the idea. Often that's the hardest part. You have lots of
Sure.
things you want to talk about, and I like to differentiate the idea of what you want to talk about and what you want to say. You have 10 minutes. What do you want to say? And
Yeah.
together we work through that.